So hello everybody, my name is Ben Loomer and I'm the Community Service Learning Coordinator at Learn. And we are very excited to invite you to Earth School Explained. And it's a webinar featuring Kathleen Usher. So just for a bit of context, about 2-3 months ago now, I was brushing my teeth listening to CBC Radio and I heard Kathleen being interviewed about this really great resource called Earth School. And it was one of those tabs that I had opened but didn't have a chance to look at until a few weeks later. And I took a look and was like, oh, I need to speak to Kathleen and make sure that more teachers, educators, parents from all across the province know about this resource so that we can help introduce young people to the important issues around our Earth, around the environment, and how what is our responsibility to making sure that it is safe and clean and healthy as a society. So that led to this webinar that we're doing now. So I'd like to welcome everybody. And with that, I'd like to introduce Kathleen, who is our guest today. And so Kathleen, maybe you can just quickly introduce yourself and a bit of your background.
Yeah, well, hi everybody. I'm really happy that that you're here, and I put together a few notes just about my background and where I'm from. I've been working in the environmental field for, kind of scary to say, over 30 years now, and for 20 years with nonprofits and NGOs across Quebec, including Evergreen, the Earth Values Institute, and AD Naturalists. And before that, worked with Parks Canada as a park naturalist. And since then, I have done a lot of professional development for teachers and designed a course at McGill that ended up becoming a doctoral degree that I wanted to look at what the impact could be on teachers in training to expose them to this kind of environmental education early in their practice, to try to increase their sense of agency and being able to teach in a more place-based, outdoor and experiential way, whether it was science or anything else. In the middle of finishing my doctoral thesis, I learned that around the corner from my house, a post teaching science to elementary students, where my daughter had attended school at Willingdon Elementary, was open. And I introduced myself to the principal at the time and said, well, I would be game to put my money where my mouth is and see if I can actually enact the kind of teaching that I am promoting in a formal school context as a science specialist. And so I've been at Willingdon for the past 8 years, and I have learned so much, and I have had such an amazing time and continue to have an amazing time there. So I keep one foot out doing some special projects like Earth School, for instance, but I also am very much a full-time science specialist and run the environment clubs, which we call the Green Committee at Willingdon, and we try to grow a few things too.
Great. So Kathleen, can you maybe just describe how Earth School got started and what is Earth School?
Yeah, Earth School came about from a situation that we've all been living. So on April 1st, I received an email from a fellow who worked with the United Nations Environment Program, or UNEP. He was emailing me that day with an idea to use this as an opportunity, this global pause and lockdown, as an opportunity to reach a lot of learners that we might not normally have access to in environmental education. He was also writing to me as the dad of 4 kids who, he was busy trying to homeschool and had all of his ideas about how he wanted to homeschool. And as he started to look online, he realized that environmental education is not so easily accessible online. It's like he described it as a fire hose. And I thought that gave us a really good image. All of these resources just flying at us and not really having a way of organizing it or putting it in a shape that made sense. So he and I worked with a fellow from UNESCO named Sam Barrett, and I mapped out and designed what I felt would be a great introduction to any level of environmental learner. And so this was, you know, at the entry level, and also that would appeal to people who were more involved in this. And we designed this digital platform that we then brought to TED Ed. Now, TED Ed is the educational arm of the TED Talks people. And they have already produced incredible educational videos with animations where they tackle sometimes really complex and difficult subjects and make them very accessible without holding any punches, I might add. And the impact has been enormous already before Earth School. And so what they suggested is that we use their platform and we use their landing videos. Today, what I thought we might do is in a couple of minutes, I will walk us through a quest so you can see how it might work and how you might adapt it in your own practice. So you can just imagine, here we are all at our kitchen tables, right? I mean, everybody's in lockdown. This was April 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, where we had our first meetings. And I learned how to use Skype again, which I hadn't used in many years. And we watched in these meetings as, you know, someone's dog or baby or partner came in and out of the frame or behind them or whatever. It was wonderful. And we built this program in such a way that it would speak to people who were literally locked in their homes. So imagine a child sitting at the kitchen table learning about the environment and nature. Well, when you think about the environment and nature, the problem is it's always out there. We don't think of it as in here. We don't think of nature as being something that's part of us, that we are part of. So I designed it so that we would start with what was right at hand: the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the electronic devices we're using right now, the energy we need, the homes we live in. Start with that and get them curious and interested and wanting to learn more. And then we evolve from there. Now, as I built this platform with this partner from UNEP and this partner from UNESCO, and we had our TED Ed partners on board, we then opened the door. We sent out a call to experts worldwide to come and join us in this adventure, this 30-day adventure, where we were looking for curators to come and mine the amazing resources out there. Then we had partners come on board for content. So partners like National Geographic, like BBC Ideas, the World Wildlife Fund as well, and many others. You'll see all their logos at the end of a little landing video in a sec. So that old adage of build it and they will come is really how this worked. Here we were, just a few people, really had a lot of heart. I was excited to put my environmental education approach out there to the world to see what more could be made of it. And all of these curators came on board until we were 50 people on these crazy Skype calls with the dogs and the babies and whatever else going on. And we have made some amazing friendships along the way. And I'm excited to share with you now Earth School. So if you bear with me, I'm going to leave our PowerPoint for a moment, and we are going to go to just one sec. There we go. And it takes a few button clicks to get out of there, but that's all right. So I'm going to take us to the Earth School landing page, and we will share these links as well, I think, right, Ben, in a follow-up. So welcome to the Earth School landing page, and I'd like us to watch now this. So there we go. Excellent. So this is the, I guess I just have to close this. So you'll have to excuse me, I talk my way through as I scroll about. This is the landing page, and you can see some of our main partners here. You can find all of these resources on their websites, but it is not presented in an obvious way. And so the thing that's exciting about Earth School is that we have this design plan where we start, as I said before, with the nature of our stuff. And then we go in from there to the nature of society and how nature has informed a lot of how our cities have been made, how our buildings are built, how our transportation has been designed, how we grow our food, etc. And from there, we're hoping that the learners and the people who are consuming Earth School are now curious about figuring out more about how their planet works. And that's why theme 3 is the nature of nature. This is the nature of nature in balance. This is how the world works, looking at the cycles of water, of biodiversity, of weather and climate, of the ocean, and of plants and photosynthesis. And then we followed that with the nature of change, because obviously our world is not functioning the way it should be. It is not in balance. And we look at the nature of deforestation, of biodiversity loss, climate change, plastics, and we end on a high note in that themed week of restoration. And we immediately go from there into the actions that we can take. When I run my green committees with grade 4 at the junior campus and grade 5, 6 at the senior campus, I have no shortage of joiners. These kids are dying to do stuff, to make a difference, to be part of the solution. And so here you have 2 full weeks of action. You have recycling, composting, the nature of tree planting, of urban gardens and renewable energy. In theme 5 and in theme 6, you have collective action. How can we come together around these issues in a larger sense? Our citizen science curation team was amazing, and there are so many super resources available there. And you know, I really invite you to follow this if you want to as a designed experience, starting with Quest 1 and going to Quest 30, but also to feel absolutely free to use this as an aggregate of environmental education resources where you can just go in and pick and mix, create your own thing. As teachers, we are such creative people. I would never want you to feel hemmed in by the way a particular quest was made. You should really feel free to dig in. So I'm just going to go back here so that I can see you. Everyone's still with us. That's great. And we have some new people too. Well, welcome. We are about to go into a quest, and I just wanted to do a check-in with Ben. Is the sound okay when we play the videos?
Yeah, it's sounds good to me.
It's okay. Good, good. So when you decide which quest you would like to start with, you can start with number 1, which is the food we eat. But the one that really spoke to Ben was the one about the clothes and the t-shirts. So I thought we would start with that. So Ben, it's your choice today, okay? And I thought a good way to start for you, just to get a sense of how these work, is to actually live through one of these landing videos and the quiz that follows so that you see how that works. Now, with my without my glasses on, I'm going to zoom in. So we are connected to nature in everything we do, right down to the shirts on our backs. Each year, we sell and buy 2 billion t-shirts globally, making it one of the most common garments in the world. But how and where is the average t-shirt made? And what's its environmental impact? Angel Chang traces the life of a t-shirt. After the video, continue on to other sections to learn more, interact, act, and share. So the video that you land on is simply the beginning. Then you go into a whole curated quest. So let's watch the landing video together.
Consider the classic white t-shirt. Annually, we sell and buy 2 billion t-shirts globally, making it one of the most common garments in the world. But how and where is the average t-shirt made? And what's its environmental impact? Clothing items can vary a lot, but a typical t-shirt begins its life on a farm in America, China, or India, where cotton seeds are sown, irrigated, and grown for the fluffy bolls they produce. Self-driving machines carefully harvest these puffs. An industrial cotton gin mechanically separates the fluffy bolls from the seeds, and the cotton lint is pressed into 225 kilogram bales. The cotton plants require a huge quantity of water and pesticides. 2,700 liters of water are needed to produce the average t-shirt, enough to fill more than 30 bathtubs. Meanwhile, cotton uses more insecticides and pesticides than any other crop in the world. These pollutants can be carcinogenic, harm the health of field workers, and damage surrounding ecosystems. Some t-shirts are made of organic cotton, grown without pesticides and insecticides, but organic cotton makes up less than 1% of the 22.7 million metric tons of cotton produced worldwide. Once the cotton bales leave the farm, textile mills ship them to a spinning facility, usually in China or India, where high-tech machines blend, card, comb, pull, stretch, and finally twist the cotton into snowy ropes of yarn called slivers. Then yarns are sent to the mill, where huge circular knitting machines weave them into sheets of rough grayish fabric, treated with heat and chemicals until they turn soft and white. Here, the fabric is dipped into commercial bleaches and azo dyes, which make up the vivid coloring in about 70% of textiles. Unfortunately, some of these contain cancer-causing cadmium, lead, chromium, and mercury. Other harmful compounds and chemicals can cause widespread contamination when released as toxic wastewater in rivers and oceans. Technologies are now so advanced in some countries that the entire process of growing and producing fabric barely touches a human hand, but only up until this point. After the finished cloth travels to factories, often in Bangladesh, China, India, or Turkey, human labor is still required to stitch them up into t-shirts. Intricate work that machines just can't do. This process has its own problems. Bangladesh, for example, which has surpassed China as the world's biggest exporter of cotton t-shirts, employs 4.5 million people in the t-shirt industry, but they typically face poor conditions and low wages. After manufacture, all those t-shirts travel by ship, train, and truck to be sold in high-income countries, a process that gives cotton an enormous carbon footprint. Some countries produce their own clothing domestically, which cuts out this polluting stage. But generally, apparel production accounts for 10% of global carbon emissions. And it's escalating. Cheaper garments and the public's willingness to buy boosted global production from 1994 to 2014 by 400% to around 80 billion garments each year. Finally, in a consumer's home, the t-shirt goes through one of the most resource-intensive phases of its lifetime. In America, for instance, the average household does nearly 400 loads of laundry per year, each using about 40 gallons of water. Washing machines and dryers both use energy, with dryers requiring 5 to 6 times more than washers. This dramatic shift in clothing consumption over the last 20 years, driven by large corporations and the trend of fast fashion, has cost the environment, the health of farmers, and driven questionable human labor practices. It's also turned fashion into the second largest polluter in the world after oil. But there are things we can do. Consider shopping secondhand. Try to look for textiles made from recycled or organic fabrics. Wash clothes less and line dry to save resources. Instead of throwing them away at the end of their life, donate, recycle, or reuse them as cleaning rags. And finally, you might ask yourself, how many t-shirts and articles of clothing will you consume over your lifetime? And what will be their combined impact on the world? When we produce TED-Ed videos about the environment, We often think about the young people who subscribe to this channel and how unfair it is that you're inheriting environmental problems that were probably set into motion long before you were born. The good news is that we see students everywhere making moves to meet the world's biggest challenges head-on. For example, in TED-Ed's Student Voice program, sustainability has emerged as a topic of choice in thousands of presentations given by students throughout the world.
So this is, I wanted you to see that end part just to get a sense of how committed TED-Ed is to providing student voice. After the video, you go to the Think section, and this has a quiz, and I'll make it bigger so that we can see it. And almost all of the quests have a quiz attached to it. And at first I wasn't so keen at the quiz idea. I thought, well, you know, I don't know, it's sort of rote or whatever. But in fact, the participants love it. And they get this little dopamine rush when they get their big green correct mark, as some of you teachers can appreciate, I'm sure. So the first question is, where in the world is cotton commonly grown? So maybe in the chat box, you could throw in your answers. Is it A, India, B, China, C, America, D, A and B only, meaning India and China, or E, all of the above? So let's see what you guys think in the chat. And then we'll go from there. All right, we've got lots of all of the aboves. All right, so we will click all the above, save my answer, correctamundo. And we go on to the next question. To produce the average t-shirt, it takes, is it A, 225 kilograms of cotton, B, large amounts of pesticides, C, 2,700 liters of water, D, C only, or E, both B and C? So I bet you guys have this one right away. I have to open it up again. What do you think? E. Excellent. All right. Let me just, there we go. And again, so you go through the quest, and it said here of the 22.7 million metric tons produced, how much cotton is grown organically? That was less than 1%, which is a bit of a shocker, and something we need to do more work on. The snowy ropes of cotton produced to create fabric are called A, yarns, B, slivers, C, bales, D, knits. And for this one, you know, this is a great opportunity for the kids to start to understand how things are manufactured. The whole manufacturing process is an area of education that is often overlooked. And so many kids really have no idea when they pull their t-shirts out in the morning that they're wearing something that used to be a plant growing in a field, that they're actually wearing seeds. Never mind all the steps of manufacturing that it has to go through. So here we save the answer, and we have two more questions. After t-shirts are made and shipped to high-income countries, often the something footprint of the item increases drastically. And of course, you're right, this will be the carbon footprint. And the final question, if you decrease the amount of laundry loads in your household to 100 less than the average, how much water would you save per year? Well, if you're doing 100 loads less than average, you must be able to save at least 4,000. Look at that. So when you go to the next section, you land into, and I'll just make this smaller so we can see the whole thing. You land into the next 4 watch videos. Now I find that that's a lot of sitting and watching, but this was the template that we had to work with. So this is what we kept. The way we designed it in this particular quest was to really have the learner understand more about how cotton is grown and harvested, then go right into the second video, which is how organic cotton is produced. And a National Geographic video about how your t-shirt can actually make a difference. So the choices we make in our everyday lives can have an impact. And number 4 is sort of an out there video, but really fantastic, about what will people wear in the future. And this was a wonderful production that The Economist had put together. And here we're talking about smart clothing, clothing that is able to you know, measure your heart rate and remind you when your next meeting is coming up. And it's a bit out there, but certainly it's always good to have one eye to the future as you're curating these quests. When you go into the dig deeper section, and here I'll make this bigger, there are additional resources for you to explore. And here you have all kinds of different activities that you can do. There's another little great video about how a particular family uses their clothing till it's worked right into the ground that I love. They have this interactive activity from National Geographic. And you can actually, if you wanted to use this as part of your digital toolkit, teaching from a distance, you could have a watch party where you view the videos together and then discuss it. You can discuss it verbally, you can discuss it in the chat box, and you can also have your students do some activities. So I'm going to come out here and have a look at all of us in our Zoom meeting here. And I have a little challenge for you now, and that is to find the label of the shirt that you're wearing. So if you want to duck out of the frame for a second or turn your camera off for a second, please feel free to do so. And I want you to find out where your shirt was made. I actually have a shirt right here beside me, so I can look at this one and cheat. Aha. All right. And then in what I'd love is for you to, in the chat box, write down which country your t-shirt was made. So I just found mine. I'm going to put that in the chat box. Okay. Oh, there's the chat box, right on. Okay. Aha, so we have Vietnam, Indonesia, Bangladesh, China, China, China. Okay. And excellent. Maureen, that's exactly what I do too, most of the time. I was lucky I had one here because they really do itch and scratch us. I have a student who is ASD, and he was so cute because when we did this activity last week, that's the first thing he said. He said, no, 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 I cut them off right away before I even put them on because it just bothers him so much. All right, terrific. So the next thing I want to do, I'm going to minimize this again, and I wanted you to just have a look at one of these great interactives. So this is National Geo has given us full access. So you don't have to be a subscriber to National Geo or sign in or put any, credentials in at all. You can just have access. And this is what was wonderful about this whole project, is that people came on board and there was this wonderful, spirit of collaboration. And I did this on a volunteer basis, put 2 months of my life into it, and many other people did as well. And so it's really it's a project of love here. So we can begin the journey, and this is the Journey of Interdependence. And here your students are asked to kind of go through their stuff, just a little bit like the way I asked you to look at the label on your shirt. So we're going to explore which countries you depend on for the things you use every day. You can also find out which countries everyone else is dependent on too. So first you have to make your little person, and so you can choose how to make the little person. Finished. And then it says nice choices, especially the clothes. Clothes are made in countries all over the world. They're a great way to start investigating your interdependence. Go to your dresser, closet, or pile of clothes on the floor and bring a few to the computer to see how your clothes connect to the rest of the world. Okay, and this was a great exercise because there's a lot more clothing in our closets and in our dressers than we might think. And so I had many students get in touch with me just to say, whoa, I had no idea we had so much stuff. And moms and dads also chimed in to let us know what an impact this exercise had had. And you go through the activity. So I'm not going to take too much more time to go through that because there's lots of other stuff I wanted to share with you. I'm going to close that down. You go to the end of that activity and you'll notice that that opened up into a new tab. So you go back to your quest, and now you're into act and share, where here you're challenged to think about your own clothes. Do any of them have holes that could be repaired instead of thrown away? Make sock puppets. If you are working with younger children, this is a fantastic activity. And you know what? If you're working with teens in high school, challenge them to create a sock puppet YouTube video. That would be hilarious. Produce a short video or make a poster to get your friends thinking about the issue of fast fashion. My experience working with young people in the environment club at our school is that they want to make a difference, and a super way to get them thinking creatively, using their language arts skills, using their creative writing skills, is to get them part of, activist campaigns. And so these Earth School quests are truly interdisciplinary, but it really depends on how you run with it. Host an online clothing swap party. Now, we developed this in the time of COVID lockdown, so this had to be a digital swap party. But of course, as things open up, kids have a lot of fun with this, and never mind kids, I know I do too with my friends, when we, get the clothes out and everyone can have at her. And down here you have want more. So these are some just excellent, and I'm sure many of you know them already, environmental education resources, such as The Story of Stuff with Annie Leonard, a fantastic resource. The environmental footprint of a t-shirt from the Smithsonian, another terrific piece. We invite people to participate. The Fashion Revolution is a really cool initiative that has a ton of resources, and it's a bit of a heavy site, so it takes a while to load. But down here, you can see how there are all these free downloads, a digital activism guide, print a poster, help us spread the word, share your fashion love story, lots of great ideas. So I hope that you get some great inspiration from doing this particular quest. The last thing I want us to do is to go to the next section where we look at the discussion. So here, when you get your students working on this, I didn't click on the right thing. There you go. Now, this is asking what we think people will wear in the future. And I know that was not the discussion question from my original work on this. So I am going to reload the quest, because sometimes this happens. It goes back to the original TED Ed video instead and discussion question instead of the one that we had put in. So here we go. This looks more like the question that I had designed. Consider your own closet and the closets of your family members. How much clothing do you all have? How will you think differently about the next piece of clothing you buy? When I have my students at Willingdon participate in these quests, I show them the international discussion that is going on. And sometimes you know where the person, the respondent is coming from, and sometimes you don't. In some of these, they say, here, this is a student who starts off, I am from India. Here we consider twice before buying any clothing because we first think of our need. Secondly, we use the clothes till the time it serves utility. I usually donate my branded clothes like Adidas, Nike, etc. to poor people and use my cotton t-shirts and cotton garments as dusting and cleaning cloths for my table. So here you have a respondent from India, and I think this is so important for our kids here in Montreal and around Quebec to have access to a wider community. Mickey Tran from Vietnam. I'm still in a developing country, so they're still poor here. I think I have about 12 t-shirts. I will not buy any more until one of them can't be used anymore. Just amazing, eh? So I'm going to come back to you and get some feedback and get a sense from you as to how our little tour of a quest went. So if you want to share your thoughts and ideas, is there something in particular in this particular quest that you had concerns about or questions or were excited about?
So, well, Dana, feel free to turn on your mic and say hello and ask your question.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, you can hear me. Great. My question is, I took a course at McGill called Global Education, and when I was doing my degree, and it talked all about, all of this kind of thing, about where we're getting our clothing from and all of that. So my question to you is, what are your thoughts on the push from, let's say, social media or Google to buy from China? Because if I were to search for, say, a dress, the first things that come up is to buy from China. Like, we're not seeing our own stores being advertised. We're seeing advertisements from these countries.
Well, I think the first thing that I would, really try to promote in my students is for them to start thinking critically about consumption on the whole, rather than, what particular countries things are made in. Our consuming habits have just gotten so out of whack, and we, our students are often not at all aware of this and haven't ever thought of it before. So I think I would begin there, rather than, I would never want to target one particular country as being a bigger culprit than another, because I know that we have a really great tradition here in the developed world of passing on our problems and then saying, oh, look how clean we're doing everything here, because in fact we've moved our whole operation to a developing country that doesn't have the same safeguards or oversight as those as we do here. So I'm always a little bit careful about that. We are by no means better than anyone else. Does that help answer your thought, or speak to your thought?
Sort of, but I'm kind of more thinking about the North American push to purchase. Do you know? I don't know if you understood what I meant, but it's okay. It's okay.
I think it's more that I'm looking at our time and thinking I would this is a bigger discussion, and I think it's an important discussion. But I am excited to show you some of the student work that has come out of the Earth School quests with my kids, to get you inspired to think about, what you might do with your own students. And Dana, can I ask which level you're teaching?
I'm not teaching in a level. I'm a wellness teacher, so I teach yoga and meditation, and I also do some resource and tutoring.
Excellent.
So I'm teaching.
Okay. But so you have a wide age range. Yeah. Okay. Well, I have a less wide age range. I teach from grades 3 to 6, but I teach a whole lot of kids every week. So I teach 350 students every week at Willingdon, and in 15 classes. And so this is a great package for me to add to my digital toolkit. So it was really handy. This was the seed that planted multiple trees, this Earth School. And I'm excited to show you some of the products and some of the learning expressions that our students have been sharing with us. So I'm going to just minimize us. Another question?
And well, Kathleen, I guess I wanted to jump in, and then I'll go to Maureen next. But I mean, I think you did a good job of kind of showing how you use the tool. But do you have any insight into how teachers might be able to use it from a distance? Hopefully, how they can be back in the classroom next year, and maybe even like a blended model. Do you have any insights around that?
I certainly do, and I think the best thing to do would be to share this PowerPoint with you now, to show you just quickly a few pictures. Let me minimize this and we'll play that. So we have here examples of student work and experimentation. One of the things with digital learning is it becomes very passive very quickly. We know we're working with students who are really not terribly motivated right now for all kinds of great reasons, but we are trying to motivate them. So Earth School encourages problem solving and hands-on discovery. In the quest that I did with grade 4 last week, we looked at the nature of design. So this is the first quest in the second week. It's quest number 6. And here we looked at the landing video that showed how nature informs things like architecture. So this is a huge shopping mall that was built based on the design of a termite mound. So this heats and cools itself. using the same kind of ventilation technology, natural technology, as the termites. Pretty cool. In this quest, there were multiple challenges. Some of them were asking the students to think about the way nature has informed our engineering and our architecture, and looking in particular at the egg shape. And so if any of you have done this before, I'm not sure, to test the strength of that egg shape, you crack 2 eggs and make your scrambled eggs or your omelet, and then put those 4 halves down with the pointy side up and start piling your books. And here are 2 of my students who just did the egg bridge. And it's amazing the number of books that those little eggshells were able to hold. I challenge my students to think about their city and think about where in Montreal is an example of this biomimicry, this using nature's shape, egg shape, in architecture. And a lot of the kids were able to tell me right away. They weren't able to all say the name, but they were all able to say, oh yeah, that big egg-shaped church. So St. Joseph's Oratory, in other words. So this is just one example of that. And then I encourage them to do an invention challenge. So the cool thing here is that as we are doing distance teaching and distance learning, we want to be able to get the kids excited about something, send them on their way to delve deeper and try things out, and then come back to us. And this is the trick, and this is what the parents are trying to wrap their heads around too with distance learning, is that it doesn't all happen in the Zoom class. It couldn't possibly. That's not how learning works. That's not how teaching works. We have to, get the kids into something, learning a new skill, and then they have to try it out. And then they need to have some way of expressing that learning to really turn that information into knowledge and competency. So what I did is we talked about architecture, we talked about biomimicry, we looked at the landing videos, and then we went into our challenges. And these were some of the works that the students had sent back to me. So one invention idea was cat vision glasses to see at night. When this was first sent to me, the part on the right was not included. I asked them to elaborate a little bit more about what was it about a cat's eye that allowed them to see more at nighttime. So they had to do a little more research. So you can go back and forth that way. If we were in the classroom, we would still be able to do this. This is a student who put together a PowerPoint about a car based on this crazy species of spider called the spinning spider, who, when there's a predator, rolls itself into a ball and hurtles itself down the hill. And he decided that, well, this would be a great way to have a fuel efficient car, to base this car on this spider that balls itself up into this little rolling sphere. And even had a swivel seat so that you wouldn't get dizzy as you rolled down the hill. And there's a hilarious video, but I won't take our time to go through that right now. We'll go back here. And in biodiversity, we looked at the biodiversity video together in class. We discussed, in our Zoom class, we discussed what biodiversity might mean. I asked them to define it afterwards. And so this is one of the students in grade 5 who sent me back her definition. I think that biodiversity is important because every little species does something vital that contributes to the well-being of the planet. And if even one little species stops doing their thing, the system collapses. For example, if bees were extinct, they would stop pollinating plants. And if they don't pollinate, the plants won't fertilize and won't grow. And if they don't grow, they won't produce food that we need. Biodiversity keeps everything balanced. So if you remove something, it will no longer be level. So I love that ability to see that balance. And they were challenged to do a little bio blitz in their backyard to try to recognize all of the different species, whether they knew the names of them or not. And I showed them, this is all within the quest, so it's all there in your biodiversity quest on Earth School. I showed them the iNaturalist app. So this is an application that works on your phone. You can take a photo of any plant or animal, and it will be using a bit of AI and a wonderful algorithm, as well as the hive mind of naturalists around the world. it will then identify this for you the best that it can and provide you with some information that you can then do some more research on. So you can see how the students went out to their backyards, they thought about biodiversity, they made their lists, etc. Thanks to Ben, I also learned in a very timely way that here in NDG, there was this great citizen science project about biodiversity, about the trees in our backyards. And so this became a local science challenge for the students to go out and measure their backyard tree and try to identify it and take photos and send it into this project. And there's a lot more examples of the students' work that they have done within the quest, and there we are. So I'd like to now come back to you guys. Hello, everybody.
Sure. Maybe I'll let you take a break from talking for a second. We have 2 more questions, but I wanted to, just before we jump in too far, in fact, maybe we'll stop sharing so we could see each other.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just make an announcement that in the new year, Danielle, Dyson, and I are going to be working on what we hope is going to be an online conference to bring together teachers from all across the province. And while the idea is still in its generative phase, it's going to be something around the Sustainable Development Goals and featuring what's happening in schools all across the province, teachers and students sharing and hopefully kind of extending this conversation that Kathleen is introducing us to right now. So I kind of wanted to say it, because the more you say it, the more it's going to become a reality. And of course, I invite all of you to be there as well. So stay tuned for that. And I say this to all the people of the future who will be watching this video as well. I'll be sharing my contact information around that. And as well, you'll be getting an email with more information on ways to stay in touch. So I noticed there was at least 3 other questions. So perhaps we'll start with Richard. I'll read it and Richard can chime in if he has anything else to add. But he says, for high school kids, are there discussions related to child labor issues? Mm-hmm. So I wonder if you have any insight or want to share an example that you know about.
Yeah, well, there are a few that pop to mind right away. First of all, the UN has amazing resources on this. So if you look on the UN website and on, it looks like it says unfashion, which I love. It's UN fashion, but it is about unfashion and changing the whole habit that we have with fast fashion. So that's a great place to start. And if you just hashtag unfashion, UN fashion, you will see some amazing resources on their Instagram page as well as on their website. But the other is the group UNEP or WE, and I imagine that many of you know of the WE organization already. It used to be Free the Children and now it is called WE, and en français ça s'appelle UNI, de ce que je comprends. And they have amazing resources and really help children think more critically about all of our consumer habits and the, and better understand the differences that we can make. So those are 2 resources I can think of off the top of my head. The swap party came from the David Suzuki Foundation initiative, which is also looking at the problem of fast fashion. So you have some heavy hitters there. You have the UN, David Suzuki, and the Kielburger brothers. Is there anything you'd like to add, Richard?
Nope, that's perfect. Thank you. I was just thinking about that because of the footprint and where a lot of the clothes were coming from. And since it's pretty much always present, the idea of the child labor and all that stuff. So I wanted a place that was well-informed and not something that would create too much discomfort or controversy between individuals. Mm-hmm. So I need good resources for that. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And this is, just quickly, this is a really important point you bring up, because it's a very careful line we have to all draw when we are introducing these kinds of topics and subjects to our students, especially our young students. And I was very aware of this in the TED Ed landing videos. The message gets heavy fast, right? I mean, I really enjoy opening up the joy of the natural world and awaken that wonder in the kids and build that connection. and then talk more about how we can play a role to better safeguard things, and not kind of hammer them with these negative messages right away. So as we were designing Earth School, this became a point of contention for us, where I was saying, wow, that video is too heavy. But then the feedback we got from the students as young as 10 was that that was the kind of message they needed to grab their attention, to kind of leave, you know, whatever video game was attracting their attention at that time long enough to actually get interested in this. So I kind of learned my lesson there, that they are ready for more. But I still say that we need to approach it gently. We need to always have that, give them that sense of hope and continuity. And the best message about nature is that it will always be there for us. You can find solace in nature. You can make a friend with a tree in your backyard, and that tree will be there for you until it gets cut down because it has the ash borer disease. But that's a whole other thing. Then you can sit on the stump like the giving tree, right? But it's to build those connections. So thank you, Richard, for bringing that up.
I noticed that Maureen had a question. Go ahead, Maureen.
I think she's muted.
Can you
There
hear
you
me?
go. Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Now we can, yeah.
Sort of a tie-in with the idea of consumption. The ministry exams one year had this thing on, you know, what's the difference between a want and a need? So that ties in beautifully. And then there's the whole New France thing, where there was a painting of the King of France wearing a beaver hat, and everybody wanted a beaver hat. So the tie-in with advertising and how they, you know, try and sell you things. So these are ideas that were in the ministry packages years ago. So you don't have to feel like you're doing a bad thing, you know.
Right.
Thing. It's okay to go there. Because, you know, there is a line, right? And you don't want to cross it. And
that's right.
But it's already there, you know, in some way. You know?
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah. And I remember reading some of those ministry exams and thinking, wow, wouldn't it have been great if we had had some content in our, you know, in other resources throughout.
Right.
I'm not a classroom, like I'm not a homeroom teacher, so I've always built my program myself without having to use a textbook. So in that sense, I really recognize how constrained a lot of teachers are when they are given these resources, and it's kind of like, well, here, cover this. And
right.
It's, you know, I don't want to ever make teachers feel like they're, you know, not doing enough at all. I just want to add to the toolkit, right? And get them seeing that they could use these quests in language arts, Français langue seconde. I mean, imagine if you got the kids, instead of writing a paragraph about what they did last summer, if you got them writing a paragraph or an essay about what their feelings are with respect to child labor in fast fashion. I mean, you know, you might get some better response and some better take-up. Or get them thinking about the idea of green video gaming, you know, and how to make gaming more ecological, and how to get an ecological message across through gaming. So a lot of our children are already quote unquote gamers. We want them to now use some of those skills and competencies they have for their other learning and for the greater good as well. So there was that angle in this that was totally out of my experience. Like that's not my wheelhouse, gaming and technology, but it was for many of our curators, and I was delighted to have them on board because they showed me a whole vantage point.
They're so packed full. You can move these things in so many different directions. It's what's wonderful. A teacher friend of mine she teaches CEGEP. And I was talking to her about the t-shirt one, and she's going to use it in CEGEP.
Fantastic. Oh yeah. I think so. I think it's all together possible. Yeah. Is Sharon up next?
Exactly. I see Sharon has a question as well. Thanks, Maureen.
Thank you. Hey Kathleen, I think that this is an amazing resource for kids to also like connect with each other and share their creativity. So I love what you shared. I had a couple of questions regarding, I know you said that you're part of a green committee at your school, and I want to know more about, I think, but the work I've done, I've noticed that like when you actually make children interact with nature, they connect with it. So I'm trying to kind of find a link between, yes, online resources and learning through this is amazing, but I'm trying to draw the link between this work with where they could learn about environmental education and how can we apply it to them actually interacting with nature in the real world. Because, you know, one thing I do when I'm in nature is I look at things and I ask myself questions. Oh, well, like if we're cutting down these trees, what is that meaning? How is it affecting, you know, all kinds of stuff, biodiversity, like all of these things I think could come alive, can come alive in kids if we actually bring them there. So are you doing any work right now within your school or within the community where you're actually bringing kids to places and having these discussions with them there? Like what's the connection with potential like experiential learning where you're making them interact?
Pre-COVID or during COVID or
let's forget COVID right now. Let's just talk about it. Let's say COVID wasn't happening and we were living in a nice world like that was, you know, not through this. Like,
we don't want to go back to normal because that normal was never normal, but we are looking forward to that. Yes, indeed. Well, experiential learning is the foundation of my practice, and so. I take this, I'm outside as much as possible for the whole month of September, and we go out in the winter, and I'm the one who runs the environmental education at the 2 camps that we go to in grade 5 and 6. In the springtime, it's all about the gardens, and it's about identifying trees by their flowers as they go into blossom, et cetera, et cetera. So outdoor work is super important. Taking them to special places like the Arboretum at the Morgan Arboretum in St. Anne de Bellevue.
Oh, yes,
that is so important because for many of our kids, yeah, sure, here at Willingdon, lots of them have cottages and are come from very affluent families, and a lot of them really don't. And they've never been in a forest before. And even those kids at a cottage, they might get to the cottage and jump into their powerboat and go for a ride, as opposed to sit in the woods. So when I have them sit in the woods quietly, and write in a journal, and it's absolute silence without any exception. And as someone who teaches mindfulness, I think you can relate to this. They go into a different space and then they share what they wrote. And what they share is just magic. And they're thinking about what's going to happen to that leaf that just fell next to their knee as they were sitting there. And they're thinking about how the trees talk to each other with their roots underground. And they're thinking about the evolution of the tree. And they're thinking about how the tree makes this hard wood out of nothing, out of water, sunlight, and carbon dioxide. Because that's something they learned in science, but now they're sitting in a forest leaning up against a 200-year-old tree. And it really sinks in. So I couldn't agree with you more that taking them out, using the power of place is so important in our teaching. Even in this COVID time, every Earth School Quest has activities where it makes sense to go outside and extend your learning outside. So if it's to go, like you saw in the biodiversity one, go to your backyard and look at all of the plants that you have there. Go out and measure the trees up and down your laneway for the citizen science project. That gets them outside with a purpose.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for answering that. I was just trying to make that link, so perfect. Thank you.
I love the question.
Great, thank you. We have time for, I guess, one more question. If anybody would like to chime in. If not, I guess I want to, thank, well, a couple of things. So one, I want to just thank Kathleen for sharing and walking us through this great resource. I guess for being a person who really helped put it together. It's a real wonderful resource again. And I'll just say that, you know, as you're showing it, as the questions from our participants kind of came up, it made me think about you know, where we jump in, and then what are the discussions and the activities that kind of flow from it. And that's really exciting. You know, one of my interests around community service learning is, you know, what are actions that young people can take to address authentic needs? And my head went to where the resource had already gone, which is like a clothing swap, and how this is a great way that we can talk about consumerism and, you know, start those discussions around child labor or unfair labor practices, along with the shocking realization that clothing, as I learned from the video, is the second biggest polluter after oil. So this was all really wonderful, and the chance for young people to really engage, and a tool for teachers to engage them in it. So this is just the beginning, I hope, of more and more discussions around this. I'd like to thank all of you for joining, and let's see where we can go. So I mean, everybody here seems to know my email. It's bloomer@learnquebec.ca. For those of you watching the video, it'll be up on your screen. But I want to thank you again, and we'll be sharing resources, and hopefully we'll be continuing this conversation. So, Kathleen, I will give you the last word.
Well, enjoy exploring Earth School, and thank you so much for your time today. And never hesitate to get in touch with me, and I will share my email with Ben as well. That's kusher@emsb.qc.ca, is the same convention that all of us follow, right? And thanks again, and get outside into this beautiful day.
Absolutely, it's a sunny day. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a nice day and week.
Bye.
Bye.